adjustment to reset, to get it to the back to the breaking fulcrum, then I can go into my rolling escape. So what this...
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Okay guys, when we have an opponent in front of us, he's standing, the majority of our opponents, they're not naive, they tend to stand in staggered stances. That's why. So if they were naive and just stood square, it'd be very easy for us to start initiating attacks in ways which are pretty self-explanatory. So what most of our opponents do is they come in and they approach in a good staggered stance. The majority of humans, of course, are right-handed, so most of them will come with the right side forward, but it could be either side, you don't control that. But here I have a right-handed opponent who's coming in right side first. One of the things we want to start doing is establishing boundaries here. Okay, and very often what you'll find is that the first and most obvious boundary is the line of the toes, the toe line. Your opponent will typically step up towards that line, and then there's like a momentary period of where they assess your stance, what they're going to do, what kind of attacks they're going to work with, and that's where things start getting interesting. What we want to be able to do is to attack both legs. The back leg is often the easier of the two to attack. What we're going to do is we're going to go out and get a hold of this hand. Okay, I want his left hand and lock up on it just like so. So that when I give a pull, I make him step towards me and I square his stance. I fundamentally change his stance. He had an idea of how he wanted to approach me, a staggered stance. That's what he wanted. And you're taking that away from him right at the start of the engagement. Okay, so the first thing he began, now his whole thing is I got to get back to my stance. Okay, so when we go in on our training partner, we're going to go through, we're going to take an underhand grip and lock up. You could just pull with the 2-on-1 wrist, nothing wrong with that. But typically you get a stronger pull when you go 2-on-1 elbow. And you give that guy a pull and lock up like so. Okay, now your opponent wanted a staggered stance, so of course he's going to go back to fight for it again. He posts his other hand on my shoulder and goes to push, 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 and if he can do so hard enough, he might recover his stance. Okay, so he's looking for stance recovery, you're looking to break his stance. He wanted a staggered stance, you're breaking it to a square stance. He wants to recover. That's the mental dynamic going on here. Okay, so when we come out towards our training partner, we come out and lock onto our training partner like so. We go through and we get to that reaction, and when we feel our opponent go to pull back in a way, that's exactly what we're looking for, to put him straight down to his hips. Okay, now who gets up first in these situations? We both have a hand on the floor, we both curl a leg back, and then from here we both curl a leg back, so we're in a symmetrical position just like so. Now what I want to do is capture my training partner's hips. So I want my 2 feet behind me. As long as I have feet in front of me, it's hard for me to come forward. I want feet behind me. As my opponent goes to get up, it's going to lock our training partner right around the hips. As he goes to recover from here, my goal is always to put his hip on the floor and walk to the opposite side of my head. Okay, and it's always the completion we're looking for. Once again, training partner in front of us, he comes out and a staggered stance. That's what he's looking for. We go through, we go over the top and underneath, and as a result we're able to draw our training partner into that square stance. When we feel the pushback reaction, that's what we're looking for. We knock it straight down to his hip. Now we come up with that symmetrical stance and lock. When he goes into a sprawl reaction from here, it's easy for us to put a hip down to the mat, and then from here we just run off the side of the head and get up there. Okay, just get rid of that leg. I like that. Yeah. Staggered, we convert him to square. He gets the pullback reaction, we knock him down to his ass. He's faster than we are, so we come up and forward, drive him down with sumigation. Okay? Let's give it a try, fellas. Look, Daniel. We see an opponent approaching in a right-handed stance. Let's look now at a situation with a guy who fights equally well from right side forward to left side forward. So when we go in and get our grip and we pull the foot forward to square, he steps back with the other foot. That's going to make double kouchi impossible. Okay, I need squared stance for that to happen. Okay, so you've got a guy now who's equally comfortable fighting left-handed or right-handed. In these situations, we go through. I want him into a square stance with double kouchi, but he steps off. Okay, from here, it's an easy thing for us now. So place our hand around our training partner's knee, place our second foot inside. This is very important. I don't want to commit to an Ashi garami without controlling the second leg. Okay, if he backsteps now, it could lead to disaster. So it's very important that before we penetrate with the Ashi garami leg, we get behind the second foot, like so. Okay, then from here, it becomes easy for us to go into the classic Ashi garami position. Now, when we work in this position, sweeping with one leg, it works up to a certain level. Okay, strong base, like you don't want to go down. If I do a good job of going right off the Ashi garami, hips high and turning out, it's possible you can knock someone down. Okay, but if this guy's a stud, then he's just going to hop back on that foot, and it's tough. So we're always going to recommend, rather than having the foot here, we put it here, behind the opposite buttocks. So when we close, when I put a powerful sweep into my opponent, he can hop once, twice, 3 times. But that drag on the back foot will eventually catch up with them. You have to have confidence in this, okay? So strong resistance, don't be polite. From here, I go up, and then I go out to the side. That's when this foot leaves the mat, okay? Again, if I only control one leg here, and I go to knock him over, a good athlete will find a way to hop with you. So we put our foot high in the buttocks here. So when he tries to step his leg out, it's tough. I put my foot low, a good guy will post on my knee and step out. So we go in high at the buttocks, strong base, lean forward, do everything you can to stop. Okay? Now from here, I can make him hop once, twice, thrice. That's when the foot leaves the mat and down he goes. Okay? From here, foot goes underneath. When he goes to swing up to his base, we swing up to our base. We're on 2 knees, he's on 2 knees. It's hard to defend a double leg from here. We go driving across the hips and then run them down into good position. So once again, we have a training partner who's standing right-handed. I want to convert him to a square stance and get a reaction for double kouchi, but he's smart and he switches stances on me. We catch, we throw our legs in, we get our foot behind the opposite leg. From the Ashi garami, get a hold of our own buttocks, just like so. Now, my foot, sticky hook, right there where the buttocks meet the hamstrings. Do everything you can not to go down, okay? First, hips up, turning, down he goes. From here, we both get up together, and we're going to right straight down to the mat and into good position. Okay? Let's give it a try. Came towards us in a staggered stance. The back leg is generally the easier one to pull forward. Okay, when we get a hold, it's easy to bring the back leg forward, and from there we've seen many forms of attack. We've seen reactions to that. You don't want to be that guy that just hammers away at one leg. Okay, you have to be able to attack both sides of the body. And so the question becomes, how do you attack the front leg? Okay, you're going to need a different methodology. If I grab a hold of my training partner with a 2-on-1 on the front leg and he plants that foot, no amount of pulling is going to bring that foot any further forward. Okay, so what worked on the back leg isn't going to work on the front leg. So what's our strategy here? The pull's going to be different. We're going to take our foot and go ankle to ankle. We're going to pull at the knee, just like so. Okay, I'm going to take our foot, put it right behind our training partner's buttocks. And as a result, we're in a great position now to start bringing this guy's weight forward, putting his weight on hands. We're going to start the action of turning across our training partner. Our hand goes here as a cross frame. We're going to make this foot take a big back step. How are we going to do this? My right foot goes in his right butt cheek. We start an action of lifting out and away to the side. And it's that kind of action which enables us to bring our legs up and over and into a kani kasami action. And we lock our knees right behind our training partner. We plant our hand on the foot, roll across our training partner's hips, and find ourselves now in the perfect position to bind up his legs and get ready to attack. So once again, training partner in front of us. We go to attack the front leg. It doesn't really make a lot of sense now to go in after the hands in pulling. No amount of pulling will bring the front leg any further forward than it already is, okay? You can grab hands to negate them. If he's trying to pass your guard, that makes sense, okay? But at some point, we've got to get to grips like this. Then we take our foot and put it right here in the buttocks. We start the action now of lifting them up and over to the side behind the safety of our frame, just like so. And then from here, we get that good kind of basami action. Posting down on the floor, coming across our training partner, and binding them up for the win. Okay? Let's give it a try, fellas.
Knee on the belly button. You can see how many knees on the belly button. They were doing it from here. That's what I'm just looking at. On top. Or collect the legs and sit there. Doesn't matter. Okay. Is there anyone that's like stronger than another, or it just doesn't matter? Okay.
Causal if-then relationship. If the guy does this, then I should do these if-then relationships. They're the crux of the sport. It's how you make decisions under stress, and the better the grasp you have over them, the better your decision making will be. It's always important to have like a default option. When there's confusion, when there's ambiguity, like you're not sure what to do, it's nice to have a strong default that you can go back to with confidence. And in these situations where you're knocking people down, there's scrambles, they're coming back at you, they're switching sides, probably the best overall default is going to be some variation of Ashi garami. Whenever you enact these kinds of things, these kinds of sequences that we've seen here today, and you're just not sure, maybe going through 3 or 4 sequences, you're like, oh, what do I do next, okay? You pretty much can't go wrong with throwing your legs into some variation of Ashi garami at some point, getting hip to hip with your opponent and putting them back under threat, okay? With that in mind, let's look at a situation where we have an opponent down seated, and we've gone into one of the more common forms of Ashi garami, cross Ashi with laced legs, like so. Okay, from here, there's a sense in which there's obvious ankle hooks on our opponent's secondary leg, there's obvious heel hooks. If I get my knee through the gap, you've got all kinds of knee bar possibilities. But one move from here, which is often overlooked and underestimated, is going into a good hip lock. From this position, I need to be able to switch my hands. Okay, I currently have my opponent's left foot on top of his right foot, a classic leg lace. Okay, but ultimately, for the move we're about to look at, we need the opposite. We need the feet like so. So something's got to happen to take his foot from left foot on top to left foot on bottom while I control the secondary leg. How are we going to do this in a stressful situation? Okay. Once we get into a position like this, we're going to start the action of going and scooping underneath our training partner's ankle. Okay, so normally we're locked in like so. We're going to put a hand over the top of our training partner's hand, knee just like so, and lock in. Now we're going to go underneath our training partner's ankle and lock up and get that hand on through. And as a result, we're able to lock up and switch our grips like so. From here, we're going to take our training partner's foot across. The question will always be, what are the most efficient ways to take our training partner's foot from top position and thread through into bottom position, in ways that we can enact against resistance. Okay, you're going to find there's a bunch of them. The obvious problem here is that we're chest to chest, which means his hands can come forward and interfere with the process. So that's something we have to be aware of. That's why many people generally prefer doing these kinds of things with their chest down in positions like so. And from here, they can make the switches on their opponent much more readily. When he goes to interfere with his hands now, my back is in the way. Okay? What doesn't change, regardless of how you're going to do this, is the idea of threading underneath the near leg. So we've got to keep the top leg under our control. Okay, knees together. When he goes to pull the top leg out, even though I'm not holding it with an Achilles grip, it's still a fairly well locked position. At some point, however, we need to go underneath. And we don't want this foot coming out, and then losing everything. So how are we going to control the secondary leg through this? One of the best ways to do it is to bring it up here to our collarbones and lock on. When he goes to pull the foot free now, the more my elbow points towards him, the harder it is for him to get away. And it's going to be relatively easy for us now to thread everything through and lock over the top and get that connection. Now when he tries to move and pull away, it's notoriously difficult. Now we get a hold of our training partner's foot, bring it across the center line. We put it behind the tricep, and then from here, we've got the perfect break-in position. When he goes to take his either leg free, it's very, very difficult. Now we're going to take our hand, get a hold of our training partner's foot, and push to the outside for a finish. So once again, we start cross Ashi. His foot's on top. We don't want this being the case. So obviously from here we need a way of transferring it. We're going to go through, control our training partner's leg, pass, and lock over the collarbones. This kind of crossbones grip, very, very hard for him to get away from. When he tries to pull the secondary leg out, even if he walks along the mat backwards, you're well connected to him. And then from here, we go over the top and thread through and underneath. We lock and control our training partner's leg. When he goes to pull free, again, it's very, very difficult. Now we clear the foot across the center line and find ourselves in the perfect position to switch our hand, knees together, feet together, and we get a very strong break. Okay? Let's give it a try, fellas.
What's your maximum length? I don't know. So you can't. ACLs tear out. Oh yeah. I've seen two Z-locks. Yeah. And they both of them like they got ACL. So you, let's see. So we go. I don't know what you I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't even say, but.
So you're saying you prefer this?
You didn't move your hips away even a little bit more.
That way?
It really is, yeah. So that your thighs line up with my knee.
Let's start spicing things up a little. We've seen some tactics we can employ from the leg lace to go into the hip lock. Okay, and we're saying that in general we have to make a transfer from our opponent's secondary leg being on top of the opposite shin to being underneath. And we've seen some ways to do this. We've seen that one problem associated with this is that when we do so chest to chest, your opponent can come forward with his hands and interfere with the process. Okay, so one possible solution to this is to be able to turn chest down towards the floor, and then from here do your work with your back facing your opponent, making it slightly more difficult for him to get hands in the way. Good. Coming back. If it should happen that we lose the secondary leg, then we might pass the other foot across, work our way back to the secondary leg, and we'd be right back in a hip lock. Okay, so we've got a bunch of things going on here. Starting position. If your opponent is inert and not particularly resistant or lacking knowledge in this position, you could hit the move as we just drilled it. Go in, make the switch, underneath, thread through, good. Coming back, what you're going to find is as your opponent has better defensive acumen, when you go to make that switch, let's perhaps get the leg up on, good. Now cover it with your left elbow, good. Now when you go to make the switch and he's resisting, it's not so easy now. Okay, so in these situations we need to go, what are you doing? Pull the leg out. Now from here we need to be able to make the switch, the foot across, good, and then regather the secondary leg and pull it back in so you can recover from an apparent failure. Okay, coming back. If you feel your opponent has strong defenses, it might be wise right from the initial leg lace to go belly down on your opponent. That way you can put your left knee on the floor in front of his hip, so when he goes to pull his secondary leg out, it's much more difficult now because the wedging effect of that knee. Now when we make the switch, it's much more likely to happen. Okay? So what we're going to do now is play from this position. We're going to start with the classic leg lace. From James' perspective, his goal is very simple, to break away from his opponent. If he can break away and break contact so he's no longer in any kind of entanglement, that's a win for James. For Aiden, his goal is to successfully pass the foot across. Just show me passing the foot across. No resistance. Good. And get to this position here and hold for 3 seconds. That's a win for Aiden. Okay, and James is going to make it as difficult as he can for Aiden to do this. If we get to this position, our assumption is if we go there for 3 to 5 seconds, you could probably push your opponent's leg through, put your arm underneath. Good. And finishing. Even James's hips are not that flexible. So, the goals again of the athlete. James's goal is the simplest one of all. Break away and escape from the entanglement completely. Aiden's is slightly more complex. He needs to be able to switch from a classic leg lace into a hip lock. And he has to be able to do so against resistance. Our general recommendation, good, come back. The more settled your opponent, the less he knows about the position, the more likely it is you could probably just make a simple transition along the lines we just drilled. Good, come back. But against strong resistance, this may be problematic. And so it would be wise perhaps to go belly down variation. And use your knee as a wedge to hold the secondary leg in place long enough to make the transition. Now you could come back by either sitting back, come back, or rolling through and making the transfer. We can hold this position for 3 seconds, you've won. Then you would switch attack on defender. If you feel you lose the secondary leg, then the onus is on us to transfer the foot across our chest and then go hunting for that secondary leg and bring it back in. And if we can hold this for 3 to 5 seconds, we've won. Okay? Let's start in our position now. On my hand clap, both athletes ready. Good work, James. Well done. Switch rolls. And wet. Very good. Okay, fellas. Make sure, guys, as always in these situations, if there's an obvious sense in which you can feel your opponent's hips or knees are tight, don't push into what you guys have enough sensitivity to know when a leg is under stress and when it's not. So don't put crazy stress on your training partner's hips and knees. Keep it within safety parameters. Let's play. Good.
Smell my feet.
Oh, yours. Right down there. That's beautiful. Doors. Yeah. Once I'm upside down, my knees, I can't move my this part either. I can't slip it. Yeah.
Very good, James. Let's go away from the triangle to foot now so we get more of that pressure.
Yes, sir. Well, you're holding on to my legs. Yeah, I'm trying to keep you in the front. So you have left leg.
Bend your knee. There's going to be a deficiency in breaking power. James has very flexible hips, and when Dan tries to finish it out, it's very, very hard when your legs are locked in a full triangle. Okay? However, if we go foot-to-foot position, that gives us an ability to pinch our knees together. Now, when we go to push on the foot, it's a very different story. You get breaking, let's go to the end of the leg there. Always the end of the leg. Okay? Push, and it's done in a very short space of time. Now, this comes at a price. Everyone on this side of the room, come to this side. Foot-to-foot is the preferred breaking position, but it must be done in a way which is intelligent. If Dan simply has his 2 feet together, look how easily James can strip the foot and bring it through into a counter position, and now go for his own lock. Good. And go to work on his opponent. Would it finish down in that position? Probably not, but it would be an annoyance, and it would certainly prevent you from breaking his leg. It would lead to a kind of a stalemate. So, from Dan's perspective, what's the smart way for him to configure his legs? Not only foot to foot, but one ankle inside the other, so that when his opponent goes to strip the foot, it's considerably more difficult in the time available. And as his hands get preoccupied by the feet, now Dan simply goes back to the lock, finds the end of the lever, and now his opponent doesn't even have defensive hands. Okay? So, once again, start position. We're going to transfer the foot across in the manner we just described. Good. Pass the foot through. First, we're going to show a bad example of foot position. A triangle locked, where even when you go to exert breaking pressure on your opponent, it's very hard to get a tap on a flexible opponent. However, when we go foot to foot, everything's fine. Okay? Now let's show a bad example of foot to foot. Feet next to each other. As a result, the opponent can strip the leg away and counterlock. Even if the counterlock doesn't work, it will absolutely screw up your ability to attack then. It will lead at best to a deadlock, and at worst to a situation where you lose the match. Coming back. So instead, we place the foot, the outside foot goes underneath. So when our opponent tries to strip the foot, it's quite difficult. As he fights harder and harder to fight your feet, it becomes easier and easier for you now to get out to the end of the lever and get breaking force on your training line. So what we're going to do now is close off with a drill, our starting position there. When we start with the leg lace, we're going to transfer the foot across. And then from here, we're going to place our feet properly. Outside foot, underneath, like so. Your training partner is going to try to take your foot and separate them. Go. That's a good stress test for your feet. Okay? You want to stress test yourself in this position. And then from here, you're going to slowly enact breaking pressure and get your submission. Okay, let's close off with one last drill.
Yeah.